What's going on? This is TJ Murphy, and welcome to another episode of Adventurous Entrepreneurs. My guest today is Dr. Jonathan Baktari. Dr. Baktari is the CEO of eNational Testing, E7 Health, and US Drug Test Centers, and brings over 20 years of clinical, administrative, and entrepreneurial experience to the conversation. He has been a triple board certified physician specializing in internal medicine, pulmonary, and critical care medicine. Dr. Baktari is a preeminent national business thought leader, interviewed in the Washington Post, USA Today, Forbes, Barron's, and many other national publications. He is also an opinion writer for The Hill and the Toronto Star, and is the host of a highly rated podcast, BaktariMD, as well as a guest on over 50 podcasts. Dr. Baktari was formerly the medical director of the Valley Health Systems, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Culinary Health Fund. He has also served as a clinical faculty for several medical schools, including the University of Nevada and Touro University. Just a few of the golden takeaways Dr. Baktari shares in this episode are startup success secrets and building Fortune 500 partnerships, key strategies for aspiring leaders, essential skills for CEOs and entrepreneurs, and controversial takes on work-life balance for young professionals. So, without further ado, this is me and Dr. Baktari. Welcome to the Adventurous Entrepreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, TJ Murphy. Since quitting my corporate 9-to-5 and starting a business while backpacking through Asia back in early 2017, I've had the privilege of learning from some incredibly adventurous entrepreneurs. Through these conversations and my own journey, I've learned that much like in life, entrepreneurship is an adventure. On this podcast, I explore the journeys of top-performing leaders in their fields. These wide-ranging conversations include tactical business advice, how I built this insights, lessons in leadership, life hacks, travel stories, favorite hobbies, and insights into living a purposeful and joy-filled life. Adventures await us, so let's dive in. Hey, Dr. Baktari, welcome to Adventurous Entrepreneurs.
TJ, thanks for having me here. I'm so excited.
I am as well. In doing my prep work for this episode, there's a lot of great subjects that we're going to dive into today. So let's start with a bit of background on your personal journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your story and what led you to the intersection of medicine and entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question because I did start off as sort of a straight arrow traditional physician, went to med school, residency, fellowship, and started practicing and started teaching also in medical schools. And I think the teaching and starting to do some administrative stuff in the hospital realm and what have you really started a journey of realizing that there's a whole another aspect to healthcare and business in providing leadership in that realm. I started to have more experiences, and one door opened another. And fast forward, 5-6 years after that, and we were starting our own startup. So I think it was really a approach that you should never stop learning, and there are multiple ways to address issues. So healthcare, you can obviously see patients and take care of them, but you can also innovate and do stuff that can impact, maybe hundreds of thousands of people or more. So I think it's understanding that you can make an impact in many ways and not just one. And this continuous learning journey led us to where we are today.
Yeah. And innovation has been a core theme throughout that journey from what I've been able to read. And you work very heavily on preventative medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you believe this is such a crucial area in healthcare today?
Because I think people view as preventive healthcare as like a side thing to regular healthcare versus, it being its own main hustle, as it were. Right. And when we looked around, we really didn't see anyone doing it or addressing it as their main focus. They were doing it maybe on the side or as a little nice thing to do, but it wasn't the main focus. And this idea that we could just leverage technology for preventive health and wellness, it was a new concept back in 2009 when we first got on this journey. And Now it doesn't seem so far-fetched because, COVID happened and vaccines and people get how you can prevent stuff theoretically. But, I tease everybody that we were like a COVID company before COVID hit, uh, you know, uh, really focusing on preventative health and vaccine preventative health in adults. And so we just wrote a lot of technology to streamline and reduce friction in people getting preventative health. And I think that led to eNational testing and it led to US drug test centers. It was all sort of a culmination of developing lots of technology and then looking to see how else we could use that technology.
Yeah. And we won't spend too much time on this subject, but I am personally curious, like, there's so much money to be made in the treatment of diseases and ailments. And we are seeing a trend towards more focus on preventative medicine and more integrative health. And I'm just curious, like, do you see that trend continuing in the years to come, or how do you see your mission of bringing that forward evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
Obviously, I think we are seeing more focus on preventative health and wellness. I think the challenge becomes to do it exclusively because
Mhm.
what we found is if you try to do both, you become not that good at either. I mean, it's like anything else, like in your business, there you may have areas of focus and strength, and then when people ask for things that they want from you that is not, you may refer them out. So I think, yes, you could provide every service to everybody, but I really think there's no way we could deliver the services we currently do in really the class fashion that we do, that top line, high quality, minimal work for the patients or the clients, if we were also focusing on traditional healthcare. So it's not that that's bad or good. I think it's just when you niche down and you focus on it, and especially when you write technology, it's hard to write technology for everything.
Everything. Yeah.
Right, right. So our technology is pretty unique in the sense that it's written simply for the sort of the book of business we do and not just theoretically anything. So it's very custom, but we have, for example, I challenge you to go to like our website, E7 Health, and there's a button there called customer reviews. I have 10,000 positive reviews in
Wow.
the last 3 years. And that's from a third party. We use a third party to get those reviews.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not saying that in a boastful way. I'm just simply saying when people are exposed to technologies that make life easier for them, make everything Amazon-esque where 3 clicks and you get what you want.
Yeah.
I think they're like startled, like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this before. So in all our companies, that's what we try to do. If you can order a widget on Amazon with 3 clicks, why can't you get a cholesterol test in 3 clicks? Or why can't you get a drug test in 3 clicks? Or get a vaccine for work or preventive health in 3 clicks? So I think that's the idea.
Yeah. Well, and you've been very successful in bringing these innovative, groundbreaking technological advancements to the medical field through several companies, as you mentioned. What has been the key ingredient? Like, what do you consider the key ingredients to making a startup successful?
Yes, a very good question because on my own podcast, BaktariMD, I talk about really the key ingredients, and it's multifaceted, but you got to start off initially getting into the right business, right?
Mhm.
I always say if you're going to be the 10th marketing company in in Albuquerque, New Mexico, uh, that's going to be a challenge, and or if you're going to be the 10th accounting firm, uh, in Oregon or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, there's only so much you can do by providing better customer service or being nicer. The question really becomes, what do you have to offer that will differentiate you? So I think the first thing I would tell people is, think about what you're going to go into. Just because you're good at it or you're familiar with it doesn't necessarily mean it's a good business.
Yeah, doesn't mean it's viable.
Yeah. So number one, think of something that really is a business that will differentiate you and you can really go out to the market with a big market advantage rather than saying, I'm really good at, landscaping, so I'm going to go in the landscaping business. Well, that may not be the world's best business currently. I don't know. I'm just making
Yeah.
that up. But so you can't just randomly pick a business because you happen to stumble onto it or a relative already knows about it. And then number two, you have to, acquire skill sets that you don't have when you're working for someone else or when you uh, had a regular job, because there are specific skill sets that you will need if you are going to start a company, be a leader, hire, fire, promote, build culture. Those are not soft skills, and they're not. And you wouldn't get on a plane and jump into the cockpit and try to land it from 30,000 feet because you're a nice
Yeah.
guy or you really work hard at landing the plane. Working hard and being nice and people like you are good and you need it, but it's not enough. You're going to actually need certain skills.
Yeah, 100%. You got to step into the right arena. Just because you're good at something, if there's 10 other players in town that are all well established and only a finite amount of customers that can be serviced, you got to see if it's viable or not. And then
Right,
once you
because then
have
you're
that,
just stealing. Then you're just stealing business from one law
yeah,
firm to another, one accounting firm to another, one marketing. The idea is actually to create something that people didn't even know they needed, and so you're I don't know if you ever read the book Blue Ocean Strategies, where you're creating a blue ocean. You don't want to be jumping into a red ocean where everyone's
it's just
just
a price battle typically at the end of
yes,
the day.
or
That's not
customer
where you want to
service.
be.
Yeah, I always say you can't cut it because you're going to provide exceptional. People always think customer service is like a strategy. Now, you need great customer service, of course, but that can't be what you're banking on. Or like you said, price and customer service. That's a red ocean strategy. And yes, you can make it, but it will be, rough and tumble, and a high percentage won't make it.
Yeah. And even when you do step into a blue ocean, inevitably you're going to run into some roadblocks around the way.
Yes,
So I'm
yes.
curious for you, in building one of your companies, is there any particular story moment that comes to mind where you ran up against what seemed like an insurmountable challenge, a big roadblock standing in your way? And how were you able to get through that and ultimately accelerate the growth of that company and overcome that problem?
That's a really good question. One particular challenge we had with one of our companies, I don't want to give the actual names away because, but
No worries.
we wanted to get an account with a Fortune 500 company to be one of our vendors, not to be our client, but to be a vendor of ours. And that became very challenging to get their attention because they're on the stock market and they're a $40 billion company, and just sending them an email wasn't going to
No,
cut it, saying, hey,
get through.
we like to work together.
Yep.
So that was quite the challenge to get their attention, and it took a multi-year strategy because we really needed that to get to the next level. And I think coming up with a 3-year strategy to, be recognized and get their attention and develop a partnership, a win-win partnership with them. It was quite challenging, but we came up with a plan, and it took a lot of work, but we just executed over a number of years, and yeah, we finally got there.
I'm curious, maybe it's too much to unpack, but maybe
Yeah.
what was the key, or what was the secret sauce in ultimately getting their
Well,
attention?
yeah, I mean, I talk about this on my podcast. So we went, first of all, to a lot of the national conferences for our industry where they were exhibiting, and we started with there. Just and then we came up with we flew down to their corporate headquarters multiple times to do presentations. Then eventually, we made contact with people who had partnerships with them, and in other words, we had partnerships with people who had partnerships with them, and it's all getting
Who
this
you know.
who
Yeah.
you know and starting to make connections. And so it is a process. In my podcast, I always say, whatever industry you're in, you should be going to the national conferences for whatever. If you're in the landscaping business, there's probably the main landscaping industry meeting,
Oh yeah.
where everyone presents and there's booths and stuff. And that's not the only thing, but that is a important thing that I always tell people who are starting a business in a new industry, and get to know all the major players. Find the Michael Jordans of your industry, or the LeBron James, and hit them up. The other really a quick tip that I found is, I think a lot of people are intimidated by hitting up the Michael Jordans and LeBron James of their industry, thinking, oh, well, why would they even talk to me? Well, we found, and what I have found, is that the people who've made it and don't need you often value mentoring, and because they've already made it. So what other
Yeah.
joys can they have? So sometimes some of these people are immensely giving if you just approach them with an honest approach in the right way. And I'm always shocked by how much they're willing to tell you and help you, literally for nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes, yeah, maybe they want a consulting contract, but a lot of times, you get the best tips, at 11 o'clock at night at the bar, at the hotel, at the conference,
Totally.
literally, maybe sometimes 12 o'clock at night, where you're with a bunch of people from the conference, and you're sipping Mai Tais or what have you, and all of a sudden they say, well, the real key to this uses blah 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 blah. And you're like, holy moly, that's not something you could have gotten in an email. They're not going to, oh, by the way, you should avoid that vendor. You should, oh, this guy, yeah, you want to be talking to this guy or this girl. So it's not the whole strategy, but that's certainly a big part of it. You have to do homework. You can't just live at corporate headquarters and pray everything comes your way.
Yeah, I think that's the best advice for people that are just getting started. And I know this from personal experience, not being someone who felt comfortable to ask for help, and
Mhm.
surrounding myself with people that were further ahead, and where I
Mm.
wanted to go, working towards the same goals I was working towards,
Yeah,
getting into the right rooms, like finding your tribe and really surrounding yourself with people that you can learn from. That is the single best thing you can do to shortcut your success. And like you said, most people that have reached a level of success like that, the most gratifying thing is being able to help other people. And not
right.
everybody's going to be that way, but like you
Yeah.
said, I found that to be true as well. I'm always
Oh, you
surprised
did.
when I
Yeah,
ask, people want to give. And
right.
especially when you're at those events, people are in that mindset of
Mhm.
helping others, and it's a really powerful thing.
Yes.
So, let's talk about leadership. I mean, you've clearly learned some very fundamental skills to effective leadership through starting and succeeding in building up several startups. So as a CEO, what are some of the top underrated skills that you believe every CEO needs to have?
Well, first of all, know that you need skills. I'm always amazed how people think these skills are soft skills that they can learn on the job. You can, but you're going to pay a price.
Yeah.
You wouldn't learn how to take out an appendix by just trying it. You want to understand that you have to go find mentors, take courses in leadership, and acquire these skills. Often people think because they started the company, or it was their money or their idea, that they're qualified to be the leader. So that's number one. Let's get that out of the way. Number two, you have to understand that when you're starting a company, people are not joining the company. They're signing up with you.
Yeah, they're buying into you.
Right. And you're the product. And so how you carry yourself, what you say, how you say it, what you do matters. Your first two hires are probably going to determine whether the company succeeds or not. Certainly your first five hires, if your first five hires in any new endeavor are just clocking in and out, you're toast.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how
Dead in the
great your
water.
idea is, doesn't matter anything. You're not going to make it probably. So understanding that then and understanding how to enroll people into your vision, how to hire, how to fire, how to promote, how to engage, how do you mentor? I think all of these goes to building culture and an environment where it's win-win. And part of it is you have to take care of people. You have to have a quid pro quo. If you come in here and kill yourself and give me, everything you got, not necessarily work more than 40 hours, but like when you're there, like give me everything you got.
Sure.
Um, the one filter that I always use is you have to look at your initial first 4 or 5 people and say, look, from you guys, the product I want is if I sold you the company, what kind of product would you give me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the product I want. Right? It's sort of like when you rent a car versus when you buy a car. When you buy a car, first week you're parking it at Walmart all the way at the corner because you don't want any debt. But if you're renting the car, you don't care where you park. It's just this owner versus renter mentality. If you don't get that owner mentality in your first 5 hires, and later on from your senior leadership, you're going to have challenges. But how do you get that is the skill sets you need. You can't just demand it. You have to provide an environment where they feel that if they do that, that their upside professionally and financially will be unlimited. And you have to convey that, right? So come help me take this company to the moon. And if we do, only great things are going to happen to you. And I think there's got to be this understanding that we're going to do this together, and where we go and how it happens, it's going to benefit all of us. And we're going to do this as a team. Yes, I'm the boss, I guess, but we're not. It's not going to be top down. At the end of the day, we're all going to try to work this together. Yes and no. You still have to be the final word, but there's a way to do it. And I talk a lot about that on my podcast. How do you get what you want that's important to you without having a top-down mentality in an organization? So that's a whole podcast in itself. But
It
I
is,
think,
yeah.
yeah.
It's a
So I
good
think
segue into the one of the other core things I wanted to talk about, which is just company culture. And what you
yeah,
just described is key in creating a thriving and productive culture for employees and ultimately driving the success that you want within your company. Are there other strategies, or how have you gone about building
yeah.
company culture in an intentional way? Because clearly you've had success with it multiple times. So I'm curious if there's a
Yeah.
process that you follow.
No, it literally is. It's a course. I mean, I would
Yeah.
say it's not an answer, but of course,
Masterclass.
but to crystallize it as best as I can, you have to first of all value people for who they are. For people, you have to understand their strengths, weaknesses, and you have to invest time in them. I don't think anyone is going to become a senior leader in your organization and give you everything they have unless you have invested time in them, right? And you can't hire the director of marketing, have a 2-hour meeting on day one, send them off to their office on the next floor, and check in with them a month later and think they're going to feel like they own the company,
Yeah.
right? They're not. You have to, so it's, hey, Bill, I know this is your first week. Let's meet an hour a day. I want to understand how you're feeling, answer your questions. And I call it micro mentoring instead of micromanaging.
Mm.
You don't have to be on every phone call with them, but you have to eventually spend enough time with them that they will basically do what you would have done. So instead of micromanaging them, say, hey, that email's wrong, that phone call is wrong, spend enough time with them that they're going to answer the email the way you would have wanted it. They're going to handle that client the way you wanted it based on your industry. But that if you think your goal is to minimize the amount of time you're going to spend with new leaders, it's just not going to work. So, but in the long run, it's going to save you lots of time, because as you mentor these future leaders, a year or two, whenever down the line, you you can then disconnect yourself from the marketing department, because Bill or Susie, is a tiger and they're on it, and they're going to start making even better decisions than if you had been on top of it. So you can invest early, so later on you can pull back and you can work on other things.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I
think
100%.
Yeah, I think so many people think, oh, I just need to hire the right person and they're going to come in and they're just going to take everything off my plate and just steer the ship in the direction I want it to go. I mean, maybe you hit the lottery and you find that person, but the reality is, no, you're going to work probably twice as hard, 3 times as hard in the beginning, helping them, mentoring them, showing them exactly how you want things done, and getting them to understand the vision for the future so that they can take it and run with it in the long term.
Yeah. And I see that a lot. People like say, I only have 4 key people in my organization. The rest, are so-so. And I'm like, really? Those 4 people, who interviewed them? Well, I did. Who trained them? I did. Okay, so then from then on, who was hiring? And then I let them interview and hire. And what they find is that there's no more bought-in people, because I'm not, maybe a bad thing, but they're not hiring and training the way you did. Again, for senior leadership. So if you want senior leaders on some level, that's your job.
You got to be a part of the process.
You got to be part of you won't get someone to be in your top core 5 or 10 if you didn't spend time with them.
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. It's a great lesson. So, Dr. Baktari, this is a podcast about entrepreneurship. We've talked a lot about some really valuable insights for people that are either thinking about starting a business or are well on their way. But one of the biggest hurdles that we all face at one time or another is living a well-rounded life. And how do we blend business with the things that we care about most and spending time with the people that we care about most? Because ultimately, for most, that freedom is why we started the business in the first place, while also trying to do good and create more value in the world. So what does living a well-rounded life look like for you? How do you blend everything together and still have time to do the things that matter most to you?
Of course, very good question. Because at the end of the day, we work so we can take care of our families and interact with our loved ones and work on things, whether it's God, family, other things that are our priorities. Yeah. Having said that, I'm going to have a quite contrarian view to what most people say. I actually did a podcast on BaktariMD it's called Work-Life Balance. That's actually the title of the podcast. So this question you're asking me, I've had quite a bit of challenge conveying to young people what that really means. Nothing to me resonates more poorly than interviewing a 23-year-old and having them tell you that work-life balance is important to them. It's like it doesn't compute, because I think the real reality of work-life balance should be more like, I want work-life balance as my career moves forward, but I don't necessarily need it at 23 or 26 or 28. Those are your best years with the most energy. I'm not saying you need to work more than 40 hours a week there, but if that's your focus at 25 to have work-life balance, I'm not sure you're going to become the next CEO of Apple. I think we could take that off the table.
Yeah, I would
Well,
agree.
I mean, we can take off. You're not going to be the CEO of Wells Fargo. You're not going to be the CEO. You're not going to become chancellor of a university. So yeah, and people say, well, so it really depends by what you mean by work-life balance. If you want to blow up your career, not necessarily working more than 40 hours a week, there's going to have to be a stretch of your life where you don't have work-life balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you just somehow get lucky. So if you say, yes, you know what, by the time I'm 40 or 50, I want to, own my own house paid off. I want money in the bank. I want to take my husband or wife and family on trips. I want to send them to camp. When my kid turns 18, I want to buy him a car. I want to take, at least 2, 3 months off every summer and spend time with my family. Okay, that could happen because you hit the lotto or somehow you inherit some money or what have you. But the best way to do that is to really kill it
Yeah.
when you have the most amount of energy so you can have work. So I guess what I'm arguing is the people who demand work-life balance at 25 often never get work-life balance because they're always working for someone else, and that company can lay them off, downsize, get bought out. And it's just, so you're committing yourself to a lifelong of just working 9 to 5 and never really, and it's not monetary. I'm talking about time freedom. I'm not
Yeah.
talking about like having a lot of money in the bank. I'm talking about, you know, taking your kids off for their college interviews, taking a week or two, moving into the dorm, stuff that you would want to be able to do. And so at 25, you're like, I need work-life balance. And I'm not trying to beat up on 25-year-olds. So it could be whatever.
Could be
Uh,
21,
it
could be
could be 30.
28. Depends on
Yeah,
what your life and the season you're in looks like.
right. But does that make sense? Or
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I'm actually arguing that's the way to get work-life balance.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I love that you took
Really?
that viewpoint because freedom comes from the development of skills and ultimately through acquiring skills and building up the right network and advancing yourself in your career. That's where you get the leverage to be able to have more freedom. It doesn't just show up on your lap. Like maybe you get lucky, like you said, and you win the lottery or you get a job that is high paying, is just the perfect fit for you, and you're able to carve out that freedom for yourself. But especially when you're young, that's the season where you really need to say yes to more things and invest the time to acquire the skills to build up your sphere of influence and your network, which ultimately then will build you a platform and a pathway towards having that freedom. And
Yes.
I think that's more often than not the route that's going to take you there the fastest. And maybe there's some alternative ways, but for most people, thinking very long and hard about what they want their life to look like in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, and then designing the season that you're in your 20s to be able to actually get there and have the skills and the leverage to be able to do so.
I totally agree. Yes.
Awesome. Well, Dr. Baktari, as we move to wrap up here, I have a question that I always ask, more of a fun question. And I call this the choose your own adventure question. So you can pick which one you'd like to answer or both if you so desire, or take it whatever direction you want. But first would just be, what's a favorite place you've traveled to, you visited in the past 10 years? Or second, what's like just your favorite place in the whole wide world that you'd love to be, whether that's in your own backyard or somewhere that you cherished visiting when you grew up. But in either case, what was it like? What makes it so memorable? Who were you
Yeah.
with? Maybe a favorite meal or drink you had, a lesson you
Yeah.
learned. Give us a
Yeah.
story.
Well, that's a loaded question because we travel a lot. But
Yeah.
I think I think the story that's what was more of an adventure was canoeing and kayaking down the Grand Canyon. There are very few experiences that I've had before since that. It is so majestic, and I was actively in the midst of it, and I was participating. A lot of times you go on vacation and you see things, but that it was like a multi-day trip where we slept by the by the side of the water. And boy, I tell you, if without getting too mushy, if you don't believe in God, after you say that, you're like, wow, who created this? Like, it's unbelievable. Like, it's for people who haven't done it, even getting away from a spiritual, I mean, it's just so mesmerizing, the grandness of it all. And it's a when your eyes see that stuff, it's just things that you can't really even process how grand and magnificent it is. So I would say that's in the top, 5 or 6 experiences.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's always been on my bucket list. So glad you had that experience. I definitely hope to do it with a group of friends here in the next
Yeah.
5 years or so. But from all of my friends that have done it, they've all said the same. Just something
Yes.
you really can't put words to. Like, you have to see it to really understand how incredible it is. So, Dr. Baktari, do you have any parting advice, a challenge for people listening, anything you'd like to share before we wrap up?
What I guess I would say is don't ever shortchange how far you can go. Don't ever think that a certain thing is not for you in the business world. Uh, don't ever sell yourself short, and feel like you have to settle for this or that. If it's important to you, if it's something you're going to enjoy, if it's going to have an impact in your life, go for it. Just go for it. You'll be shocked at once you let the world know that this is where you want to go,
Mm-hmm.
how many doors open up for you.
Yeah, I love that. Go for it. You won't regret it. And be sure to shout it out. Tell people what you're doing, because it's
And if I
amazing what
can
doors
add,
will
and if
open
I
up.
can add to it, make sure you tell yourself there's no plan B.
Yeah. Burn the bridge.
Mhm.
So, Dr. Baktari, where can people find and support you online? I know you've talked about the podcast several times.
Mhm.
Where can people connect with you? What's the best place?
Well, we have a website called BaktariMD. BaktariMD, of course, we have our podcast, BaktariMD, on YouTube, as well as all the other platforms. Uh, I'm on LinkedIn, of course, so you can just go to BaktariMD and connect with me there. And also all our websites, which should be on BaktariMD if you want to see some of the stuff we're doing. We're always open to collaborating with people and learning from people.
Yeah. And we'll put links to everything in the show notes to make it very easy for people to find and connect with you. So I just want to say I appreciate your time today. I've learned a lot. I know there was lots of valuable nuggets in here for people listening. So thank you for being the type of person that is out there sharing everything that you've learned with the world. It's a truly valuable thing.
Thanks, TJ. Thanks so much for having me. It's a big honor. Thank you.
To all of our Adventurous listeners, thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share this on social media or with someone you know will get some value from it. Leaving a review goes a long way in helping people find the show, and I personally appreciate reading them when they come in. So please go drop one if you have the time. We'll see you all next week, and remember, whether we're talking about business or the things that bring us joy outside of work, life is meant for exploring. So go out there and live it one adventure at a time.